I'm going to talk you through Language Paper 2 question 3, which is pretty much exactly the same as Language Paper 1 question 2. It's analysis of language and language use. It's important to remember that whilst Paper 1 is mainly about reader experience and effect on the reader, this question is mainly about the purpose of the writer and what the writer is trying to convey. So it's important to remember that. Now, the question will look something like this. So how does the writer use language to describe the school? And it will give specific lines to focus on. So here, what I've already done, I've done quite a lot of preparation for this one. Drawn a box around it. Make sure you do this because it won't be reprinted for you. So you need to make sure you draw a box around it in the exam. Now, I'll just leave this here for a second so you can have a quick read of it. And you can pause that so I don't need to leave it there for too long. Now, how does the writer use language to describe the school? Now, what I've done is I've gone through with a highlighter and I've underlined anything that could be used to describe the school. Okay, so you would probably want about 3 phrases at least to focus on. You might find that some of them link together. Here I've only got a short extract, so I'm not going to find as much as I would do in a longer extract, but the section will only be about 10 lines, so you're only really looking for about 2 to 3 phrases. Don't worry if you haven't got any more than that. Now, the way we're going to do this is the same as Paper 1 question 2. We're going to look at the quote, look at the obvious device and the effect and link it to the purpose, then the image, feeling or tone, and then the word choice and connotation. So that's all you need to do. You need to break it up into those 3 features so that you've got plenty to say about one quote. So I've done the first one already. So this phrase, chairs always squeaked where students had leaned back on them, daring to tease the already tearing plastic. It uses hyperbole. That's my obvious device. Suggests it's always happening or it's overbearing. Now, hyperbole is always used to exaggerate. So usually the effect is going to be it's overpowering or there's too much of it or something along those lines. The image it makes it seem quite run down. Now, in actual fact, that's probably going to be my point. The image is generally something that you want to put in your point. The tone, however, is quite humorous. It's not meant to be a serious phrase, okay? So that suggests they perhaps enjoyed it. And then finally, the word daring is used to show it's perhaps a bit risky because they could have quite easily put where students had leaned back on them trying to tease, but they didn't. They put daring, and that's an interesting choice of word. Now I'm going to do that again, but with a different phrase. So let's go for the underside would hold so much chewing gum that it turned your stomach if you accidentally ran your fingers underneath it. So this is your obvious device here is again hyperbole. So, you know, if we want to talk about it again, it's hyperbolic. There's too much of it, too much dirt. Okay. Now, the image is something that I'm probably going to be a little bit more focused on. So as you see, all I'm doing again is I'm working my way down this list. So the image is disgusting. It creates a horrible image, and that suggests that the school is unpleasant to be in. Okay. Now, the tone, however, this is quite direct. So I think the direct tone is something that I'd also want to talk about. They're trying to convey to the reader how revolting this experience was. And last but not least, our word choice and our connotation. So if we go back, let's see. Hold so much chewing gum that it would turn your stomach if you accidentally ran your fingers underneath it. Quite like the word hold. It could have said the underside would have so much chewing gum on it, or it would be covered in so much chewing gum. I also like the word turned. So I think I'm going to go for hold because it suggests it's almost contained. That there's so much it's part of it. and that it's almost like a usual experience. Okay, so there's quite a lot of notes there, quite a lot to talk about. That's going to be my point 1, and that's going to be my point 2. And then hopefully I would have a point 3. Now this one's quite similar to the first point, so I could perhaps link it. But 2 points is fine, 3 points is better. You just need to be able to say enough about one quote to be able to get a decent amount of marks. So now for question 3, we're going to write up, and we're going to write up in the order that we've planned it, which is this order here. So the obvious device, image, feeling, tone, word and connotation. So how does the writer use language to describe the school? The writer describes the school as. That's the starting point, because that was the question, and it's always important to reference the question when you're explaining it. Okay, so the writer describes the school as, and then we're going to go for a rundown, as we would go for disgusting and unpleasant. So the writer describes the school as run down. And then our typical, this is clear through, and we've got our obvious device, the use of, and the obvious device was hyperbole. In the chairs always squeaked. Okay. And then we need to explain that device. So by using hyperbole, the writer, and then obviously they exaggerate, but it's worth mentioning that they're exaggerates the fact that all of the furniture was nearly broken or damaged. Now that sounds quite explicit so far. It's fairly obvious, probably attempts at best. So we need to make sure that we extend that a little bit more. So we can now extend it into our image or our tone, or even better, our word choice. So the run down image is enhanced, and I'm going to go for word choice first because it makes sense. So it's enhanced by the word daring, which connotes a risk and suggests that students of the school would purposely break the chairs. Good. Okay, so we've got the obvious device, and then we've got the image which backs this up, and the choice of a word and what connotations it holds. Now I'm going to go back into that tone because I feel like I can say something more about the tone. So the tone kind of changes the effect. I'm going to put the word however. The tone is fairly light humoured in the words squeaked and tease, suggesting that the writer is, I would say, nostalgic about the rundown nature of the school, as they seem to be joking about it. Now, it didn't take me too long to write it up. It's just the same process that we've worked through before, maybe in a bit different order, but it has roughly the same effect. So the writer describes that as, this is clear through the use of, and that's your obvious device. By using obvious device, the writer does something. The image, and then what the effect is created by the image. Here we've got it's enhanced. The word connotes, and that suggests. And then talking about the tone at the end. The tone is suggesting that the writer is. Now, if you wanted to write it in a different order, you could quite easily. Let's say if we looked at the second one, I'm not going to write it out, but if we looked at the second one, the writer describes the school as disgusting and unpleasant. This is clear through the hyperbole used in the underside would hold so much chewing gum that it turned your stomach. By using the hyperbole, it suggests there was too much chewing gum underneath the desks, which makes the image seem further disgusting and unpleasant. The direct tone here is used to make the reader experience the revolting image, which is used to exaggerate it. Furthermore, the word hold connotes contained, so it suggests that the chewing gum even seemed to be part of the table. This further makes it seem disgusting and unpleasant. Okay, so it's just about going through the different points that we've gone through for the word choice and trying to get as much out of this as you can to support what you're saying about the purpose. If it's a simile, then you mention it's a simile here and you talk about the comparison here. If it's hyperbole, you talk about the hyperbole and then the effect of the exaggeration here. Metaphor, same metaphor, what comparison is being made. So it's about this bit is your first port of call, and then this is your explanation, and this is your word choice. So this would usually be your main point would be in the image, and then this would be your explanation, and then your further detail. It's just to explain it a little bit better for you.